Well, right now it's just me and you, Wes. So nice to meet
Okay,
you.
nice to meet you. Yeah.
Um, so the reason we're here today is to talk about social enterprise certification, and I'm going to give
Mhm.
a little bit of an introduction to Buy Social Canada, myself, and then walk through what we mean when we talk about social enterprise and what the certification process is.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'd also love to learn about you and your organization as well.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So maybe I'll start off with myself. My name is Niamh O'Sullivan. I'm the manager of social enterprise and networks at Buy Social Canada. I don't know how familiar you are with our work, but we are a social enterprise that believes that procurement is more than an economic transaction, that it contributes to communities' social and economic goals. And we see
Mhm.
opportunities to buy and sell with impact at all levels in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Um, so what does that mean? It means that every purchase or transaction has a social, cultural, or environmental or economic impact, whether people realize it or not. And when you think of the collective effort of leveraging social value from purchasing, this can have a powerful and positive ripple effects on our communities.
Mhm.
Um, we believe in building healthy communities, communities that are rich in human, social, cultural, physical, and economic capital. And if we redefine how goods and services are bought and sold, by building business relationships between social suppliers and purchasers, we
Mhm.
can lead the movement for community capital creators across the country.
Mhm.
I would say that by Social Canada, about 80% of our work is with large purchasers. Hi, Alicia or Alicia. Um, I'd say 80% of our work was with large purchasers. So three tiers of government. We work with lots of municipalities, lots of folks from the construction sector, private sector, crown corporations, basically any organization that spends tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars per year. We help them create policies and frameworks to spend their money in a more socially beneficial way. So I
Mhm.
think for a long time, people have been familiar with the concept of buy local. If you buy something locally, the money spent goes right back into community more than a multinational corporation. Separate to that, people are very familiar with the concept of buy green, buy something made from compostable materials or recycled materials. Well, we're encouraging folks to buy social, and social includes local and green, but it goes one step further. Why not buy from a women-owned business, an Indigenous-owned business, a Black-owned business? Or we think the best value for dollar spent is buy from a social enterprise because unlike traditional businesses, social enterprises don't distribute their profits to owners and shareholders. It goes back into their purpose and creates more impact. Our founder, David LePage, was working with enterprising nonprofits over a decade ago and helping businesses launch social enterprises. And he said the issue wasn't that the social enterprises don't exist. The issue is that no one was buying from them. So then he started Buy Social Canada to build demand and marketability for social enterprises. So that's why Buy Social Canada exists. On the flip side of our demand, all these contractors and clients that we're working with, they're like, okay, we'll buy from a social enterprise, but where are they? So that's why we created our online directory, to raise the profile and get more visibility for social enterprises. Our certified social enterprise directory is accessible for free on our website. You don't have to pay to access this information. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to find social enterprises so they can grow their business and grow their impact. Um, Maybe I'll go back a second about, what is a social enterprise, because it's kind of a big umbrella term and social entrepreneurship has a lot of buzz around it right now. But our definition is aligned internationally with our international partners like Social Enterprise for World Forum, Social Traders Australia, Social Enterprise UK, the Netherlands. But we collectively agree that a social enterprise is a business that generates majority of its revenue through the sale of goods and services. They have a defined social, cultural, or environmental purpose that's embedded in their operations. And this is the crucial bit. And majority of profits are reinvested back into their purpose. So at least 51% of profits are reinvested. Um, this is what really separates a social enterprise from a social purpose business. Now, taking a step back, there are a lot of nonprofits that operate social enterprises, and maybe the nonprofit is a big piece and the social enterprise is just a small piece. So in that case, with certification, we'd really focus on, okay, are we certifying the whole organization? Or are we certifying the landscaping company that the nonprofit operates? So that's when we look at when we're talking about, does the majority of your revenue come through sale of services? And also some social enterprises are in their infancy and maybe they received a large startup grant. So when they get certified, 90% of their revenue is from a grant, but they have the trajectory and the goal that in the next 3 to 5 years, majority of revenue will come from sale of goods and services. So we'd happily certify an organization that's on that journey and help build their capacity so they can achieve their goals. I would say about 90% of our social enterprises, certified social enterprises, are nonprofits, but there's a growing more and more group of what we call hybrid social enterprises. These are often for-profit organizations that have amended their articles of incorporation to state that if they ever transferred assets, gave out dividends, or dissolved the business, what happens to the money? And that's when that profit reinvestment piece really comes into play. Like by Social Canada, we're a community contributions company, which is a BC incorporation model that's like a hybrid between a for-profit and a nonprofit. Some co-ops are more set up more like nonprofits, and they can be social enterprises too. So there's lots of different ways a social enterprise can exist. So obviously, social enterprises come in all different shapes and forms. They sell a variety of different services. You know, they could be a Green Shield Canada. They're probably our biggest social enterprise. They generated over $4 billion in revenue last year and have 500 employees. Like that is like, they've been around for 50 years though. You know, that didn't happen overnight. Then there's other organizations, Budgie Box Gifts in Vancouver. Currently it's a one-person show and they maybe make 20 grand a year in revenue, but it's about this journey. You know, it doesn't happen in infancy. And for some people, their social enterprise is their passion, it's their side hustle. Other people, it's a lot more established. So there's no any one type of business that a social enterprise could be. You know, you could be doing construction, landscaping, cleaning, consulting. There's no one size fits all. And social enterprises also exist to address a variety of society's issues. Maybe they're to create employment opportunities and skills training for a variety of people. Maybe there's an environmental lens. Maybe they're focused on newcomers and immigrants, perhaps child and youth development. You can see here the list is quite large of what different type of supports social enterprises can provide. And some stories about different social enterprises that exist. Ember Staffing Solution is a huge organization they started in the downtown east side of Vancouver. They do temporary labor staffing solutions and they employ people that a lot of traditional businesses would not employ. And they're supportive employers. They let them maybe only work 2 days a week. They also provide free training. So let's say someone wants to enter the construction sector and start a new career pathway. They give them steel toe boots and do construction safety programs that are free. They generate over 50 million in revenue and they just expanded into Edmonton because there's a demand there too. Another great organization is Eva's Print Shop in Toronto. They help youth that are at risk of homelessness and they train them how to work in a print shop and do lots of programming, and the skills training and employment that they get through their programming helps those youth get their lives kind of on track in a career and give work experience so they can find more employment opportunities in the future. And Mission Possible is another amazing one in Vancouver. They provide exterior property maintenance, cleaning, graffiti removal, litter collection, and they're based in Metro Vancouver. And they employ people for about 0 to 6 months, and provide a lot of wraparound supports. A lot of their program participants are people that are experiencing homelessness, maybe addiction issues, trauma. And through their experience with Mission Possible, they're able to get an updated resume, some recent work experience, and then hopefully advance into more jobs in the future. And that's an interesting model because we see that being replicated higher good in Edmonton is a really similar example, or Radicare in Calgary recently launched doing similar services. I think Operation Come Home in Ottawa is now starting to do this type of street cleaning as well. So those are great examples because the governments are in need of those type of services. And what's great to see is social enterprises are winning contracts with the government for services. And it's hard to win contracts with the government. You know, that's a big buyer. How do you grow your capacity to respond to an RFP? And I think a lot of them were able to do that because they're part of our network. A lot of benefits to being part of becoming certified is you have access to lots of resources and tools. You get 2 hours of coaching with us. We host lots of events throughout the year, lots of social enterprise focused webinars. We recently released the Guide to Social Enterprise, which is an incredible resource if you're doing any strategic planning for whatever phase you're at. Maybe you're in a plan phase about to launch. Maybe you've been around for 3 to 5 years and you're struggling to sustain your business. Or maybe you've been around for a decade or more and you're thinking of starting a new social enterprise. You know, how can you grow? How can you expand to a new location? Our Guide to Social Enterprise addresses all of that. But I think one of the benefits of certification is a lot of businesses are really, they're very exposed to the brand that is By Social Canada, and they're looking for the badge. So I know that some municipalities are now putting out RFPs, and before it was, you know, what's your lowest value? What's your work experience? Now they're asking questions like, what type of business are you? Are you a certified social enterprise? So if you can submit your certification that you're a social enterprise, you win extra points and you might be awarded that contract. So that you get a competitive edge. And there's a level of notoriety when it comes to these large purchasers that are looking for social enterprises to purchase from. So obviously our directory online is available for free, but we also have a detailed spreadsheet that we send to all of our purchasing partners every second month, and that would have more detailed information about all the organizations. So it wouldn't just be a website URL and an info at email. It would be the executive director's phone number and personal email so that it's easier to access the organization. Yeah, so there's lots of reasons on why you should be certified. Another big piece of what we do outside of training and support is advocacy. So each year, we survey our sector, our network, and we ask questions like, how many employees do you have? What's your revenue? What are your biggest challenges? Any big successes? And we aggregate that data and we go to the federal government. We have contacts at ESDC, ISED, and PSPC. And I myself am on the Social Enterprise Council of Canada. We do a lot of advocacy and we say, hey, here are the gaps, and here, you know, accessing capital is a huge issue. Capacity for team is a huge issue. You know, they're asking for more investment in this. It'd be great if you continued the investment readiness program. So we relay that information to government stakeholders as an advocacy tool. So being part of this network is also an opportunity to share your feedback on where you want to see the ecosystem go in the future. And then obviously, if you need extra supports, we do offer customized consulting supports for certified social enterprises. This can include business planning, stakeholder engagement, market readiness, so on and so forth. That can be in addition if you ever need any extra supports. And I really like this story that Clean Start won a competitive contract with BC Housing and went out to RFP, and they reached out to us. Hey, can you give us some help? We really need to win this contract. And they did. They won it against traditional for-profit businesses. They were able to price their goods and services accordingly so they can still provide wraparound support to their employees and create skills training opportunities for people that face barriers, but also deliver a high quality service to their client. So I love sharing stories like that because people have this preconceived notion that sometimes social enterprises are less good, less quality than a traditional business, and it's simply not the case. Yeah, so how do you become certified? What's the process? So you started by coming to today's webinar. Thank you for coming. But it's pretty easy. You fill out an application form. I can put the link in a chat shortly. If we read through your responses and we ask some questions, and if it looks like you meet our criteria, then we schedule a call. You meet with me. I learn more about your organization, kind of walk you through this process. Then the next step is you share your documents. So in order to verify that you are a social enterprise, we review your incorporation documents and your financial statements to look at, okay, how is the business structured? Where does the money go? And also, where does the money come from? That goes back into the piece of, you know, Are you still dependent on grants and donations, or are you fully dependent on sale of services? And then we ask you to sign an MOU, send over your logo, and we onboard you onto our network. And throughout the year, we host lots of different events. In Toronto, we have a social procurement roundtable that meets 4 times a year. It's like a social enterprise hub. Sometimes I host social enterprise breakfasts. In Vancouver, we also have a roundtable, and downtown Eastside, social enterprise breakfast, where we convene social enterprises and social purchasers. And we do a lot of advocacy at a local level too. What are the needs of each community? What are things that are coming up? There's a roundtable in Winnipeg as well. And then for a more national level, we have our community of practice. This connects folks from all across the country. It could be New Brunswick, Nunavut, Saskatchewan, Alberta. And once again, that's social enterprise, social purchasers, intermediaries, and we talk about what are we working on and what are we hearing from the sector. So there's lots of space to connect with other leaders in the sector. And I'd say one thing that's really incredible about social enterprises is that unlike traditional for-profit businesses, social enterprises, they don't keep secrets from each other. If someone has a question like, hey, I'm struggling with this, does anyone have any experience? They're like, jump on a call. Here's a report we drafted on this problem, or here's my lawyer. I recommend this financial institution. Everyone shares information with each other because they all want each other to thrive. It's not a competition. It's everyone's here not only to create profit, but to address a societal issue. And everyone knows that the more you can grow your business, the better you can deliver on your purpose. So certification is free for the first year. If you join now, it'll be free until January 2026. And then it's based on your revenue. So if you're less than 500,000 per year, it's less than $500,000, it's $100 per year. Between 500 and a million, it's 200 per year. Over a million, it's 300 per year. And over 15 million, it's 2,500 per year. So it's really a scale depending on the size of each organization. And we know that things change year on year. So sometimes we do random spot checks, check in, hey, how's business going? I know you had a really big grant one year. Is that still the case? Or I heard you won a big contract with a city. Can you tell us more about that? Because it's a journey and things ebb and flow over time. We recently became a partner with People and Planet First, which is a global verification led by Social Enterprise World Forum. And they have an international directory called the Good Market. So if you become certified with Buy Social Canada, you're automatically eligible for free membership on People and Planet First, which is another added benefit to how do you raise your profile internationally. So that's a new feature, and we can tell you more about that if you go through the certification process. And then getting towards the end here, obviously you get certified whenever, but recertification occurs every January, and it's quite a simple process. We'll send out lots of information and a heads up, and you fill out a short form, a Google form, probably takes about 10-15 minutes, and then you pay your invoice if it's your year to be invoiced. And then once those are complete, we send out an updated digital certificate. So it's a lot. If any of you are familiar with B Corp, it is nothing like that. This is a lot more straightforward and less time consuming. And yes, okay, I'm gonna pause now because we have lots of time left over for questions, and I'd love to hear from each of you. Do you have questions about certification? Maybe tell me a bit about your organization and we can talk about next steps.